The oldest surviving written story is that of Gilgamesh, which was recorded on clay tablets in the city of Uruk. And in the latter part of the Gilgamesh mythos, our mighty hero sets off on a quest to find immortality. So even in that ancient tale, there is a legend of immortality that comes into play. And if it was good enough for Gilgamesh, it's good enough for you. And that is what I want to talk about today. The benefits of introducing concepts of immortality, which it can bring to your world building and storytelling. Welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worlds with your host, Marie Mullaney. Just to address the elephant in the room, we are in my garden today because it is too hot, just way too hot in the studio today. So we are recording in the garden and I hope that you enjoy the scenery. Before we plunge into the thematic advantages offered by introducing immortal or near immortal characters, we should define what we mean by immortality. First, we can split immortals into two broad categories. Immortals that are made immortal from the start, or a being from a mortal race that achieves immortality through some means. The first type, created immortals, include examples like Highlander from the original movie, Tolkien's elves, and the Greek gods. On the other side of the fence, the mortal who becomes immortal, we have people or creatures who achieve immortality through, for example, going on a quest like a D&D Lich, which can create a phylactery and achieve immortality through that necromantic ritual, or a vampire in Anne Rice's universe, or Dorian Gray, who had a portrait of himself that carried his age for him and assured his immortality. Intersecting with these two broad categories, you can split immortality into four types based on how the immortality is achieved or activated. First is eternal youth. Characters stop aging, but they can still be killed like Dorian Gray or vampires. Then you have magically sustained immortality, which requires an external source like potions, or there needs to be a curse. Vampires are actually a great example of this. They need to consume blood to keep themselves alive. Your third type is overpowered healing. Here the character can take damage and seem to be dead, but can recover with incredible regeneration capabilities. For example, the cheerleader from Heroes, save the cheerleader, save the world. Or Wolverine from the X-Men. And lastly, you can have perfect immortality. This is where you have no aging or death. Perhaps the character might have a weakness. Superman is a good example of this. Take away green kryptonite and he's effectively perfectly immortal. These characters are very difficult to write for, and we will get to that in the future, how you deal with that kind of character. Okay, so those are the types of immortals that I'm going to be addressing in this video. But why would you have any immortals in your world at all? Isn't it just introducing unnecessary concepts and lowering the stakes of your stories because there's this unkillable character in the midst? Well, no. I propose that there are some great themes that are explored at their best with immortal or near immortal characters, or even just a character on a quest for immortality. So, if you've enjoyed exploring the types of immortality, hit the thumbs up button, and let's talk about the first benefit of immortal characters, that of a living repository of knowledge. I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago. I was there the day the strength of men failed. I led Isildur into the heart of Mount Doom, where the ring was forged, the one place it could be destroyed. It should have ended that day, but evil was allowed to endure. Isildur kept the ring. The line of kings is broken. There's no strength left in the world of men. Those words were said by Elrond to Gandalf, and they perfectly exemplify the benefit of having immortal characters as repositories of histories. Immortal beings, no matter their type, can bridge the gap between different eras, providing first-hand accounts and perspective on events that would otherwise be long forgotten. This not only provides a deep well of knowledge and context for your world, but also provides personal and emotional resonance with the history of your world. It infuses the events of the past with real feeling and takes the audience back to that moment and provides emotional weight far beyond just a dry recounting of the facts. In addition, immortal characters highlight continuity and changes over vast periods of time. They can compare past and present, showing how cultures, technologies, and political landscapes evolve. This perspective can also illustrate the tragic elements of immortality, such as witnessing the decay of once great civilizations or the deaths of countless friends and loved ones. Generally, I wouldn't recommend using these characters as central plot characters. Their purpose is to inform, not to drive the story. If you do use such a character as a protagonist, bear in mind that you do need to cater for their knowledge in the story and make sure that they still have challenges to overcome despite the information that they carry with them. Those challenges could be gaining more information, or it could be some other physical challenge that they need to beat. But just bear in mind that they know a lot, and knowledge is power. So consider that in setting up their growth arc and the challenges they face. Okay, so that's the living repository of knowledge. But surely there are other uses for immortal characters. But of course, let's talk about exploring themes of grief and loss. Firin, Beyond Journey's End, is an anime that profoundly explores how immortality, or near immortality anyway, affects the experience of loss and grief. Firiren, an elf who has lived for millennia and can expect to live for thousands more years, serves as a central figure through which these themes are explored. Her journey is marked by the emotional turmoil of outliving her mortal companions, providing a deep dive into the psychological impacts of eternal life. Firiren's story begins after the end of a grand quest. She was part of a heroic party that defeated the Demon King alongside her human companions. That's literally episode 1. The end of their quest is the first episode. Friren is still keen to collect spells and continue her quest for knowledge, but her companions all retire. They're done. And indeed, as the years pass, her companions age and eventually pass away, leaving Friren to cope with their absence. This loss is particularly poignant because, despite her extended lifespan, she finds herself grappling with the same intense sorrow and sense of emptiness that any mortal would feel. Her long life becomes a prolonged period of mourning, where the memories of her fallen friends continue to haunt her. This constant reminder of the past bonds and the adventures shapes her future. It influences her actions and decisions as she travels alone across the continent collecting spells. She also becomes a mentor to the next generation of adventurers, shaping them with her own vast knowledge and experience. And in the end, she realizes that she too has had a great and positive impact on the world through her impact on other people, despite the grief brought by losing her friends. Her immortality turns her life into a canvas that vividly portrays how past bonds and memories can persist and shape an individual's existence. Each encounter and each memory adds layers to her character, highlighting the enduring impact of relationships. And despite her solitary travels, the essence of her friends remains with her, providing both comfort and a source of pain. The anime uses Friren's experience to delve into broader themes of mourning and healing. It examines how one can continue living while carrying the weight of numerous losses, and how healing is a continuous, albeit slow, process. Her journey is as much about self-discovering and personal growth as it is about remembering and honoring the past. Immortal characters can provide an amazing thematic element for exploring concepts of grief and loss, and how people can continue to impact our lives even after they're gone. And whoa, that was heavy. So I'm sorry. Let me see if I can find you a cat before we move on to the next theme. This is the ever-present D'Artagnan, who has been trying to escape out of the garden, as he normally does. So our next theme is the quest for immortality, or mortality. Basically, this is when you have characters striving for immortality, like Gilgamesh, or characters striving to become mortal, like Highlander. In both cases, the thematic element is generally the same. Immortality is not what it's cracked up to be, and you'll be sorry when you get it. For a positive example of this theme, let's talk about that ancient yarn. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, following the death of his close companion Enkidu, Gilgamesh becomes profoundly aware of his own mortality and sets off on a journey to find the secret to eternal life. His journey leads him to Utnapishtim, a man who was granted immortality by the gods after surviving a great flood. Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh that the gods decided to send a flood to destroy humanity, but the god Ea warned Utnapishtim, allowing him to build a ship and save his family and animals. As a reward for his piety and efforts, Utnapishtim and his wife were granted immortality by the gods. On hearing this tale, Gilgamesh is initially hopeful that he too can achieve immortality. Utnapishtim challenges him to stay awake for 6 days and 7 nights as a test, but Gilgamesh fails. However, Utnapishtim's wife convinces her husband to tell Gilgamesh about a plant at the bottom of the sea that can restore youth. Gilgamesh retrieves the plant, but loses it to a serpent on his journey home, further reinforcing the theme that immortality is beyond human reach. Ultimately, Gilgamesh returns to Uruk and realizes that although he cannot escape death, he can achieve a form of immortality through the lasting legacy of his deeds and the monumental city walls he built. And this highlights the epic's message that seeking immortality is futile, and indeed, one should focus on making a meaningful impact during your own lifetime. On the downside of that theme, consider the myth of Tithonus, lover of the Greek goddess Eos. He wished to be immortal, and Zeus granted his wish, but Tithonus did not ask for eternal youth, and age ravaged him, and in the end, Eos turned him into a cicada to give him relief from being trapped in his aged human form, unable to die. Jacqueline Carey uses this myth during the Kashyyyl trilogy to illustrate the dire fate of Hyacinth, who becomes immortal but not unaging. And indeed, the third book of that trilogy is Phaedra, the protagonist, questing to find a way to free her childhood friend Hyas from the curse of immortality, growing old but never dying. Stories with this theme, like the original Highlander movie or the Gilgamesh epic or Hyas' tale in Kashyyl's Legacy, or even the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, are about emphasizing that life is sweet because it is short, that we should value what we have and live in the here and now, because all too soon it will be gone, and that is what makes it valuable, that life without death would be a grey existence without meaning and motivation. And also that we should be careful what we wish for. But not all immortals want to be immortals, and not all of them want to die. So let's turn our attention to Anne Rice's vampires and the theme of what will you do to stay alive? Anne Rice's exploration of immortality in her vampire novels, particularly Interview with the Vampire, delves deeply into the existential and moral implications of eternal life. One of the central themes in Interview with a Vampire is the portrayal of immortality as a curse rather than a blessing. The protagonist, Louis, struggles with the eternal life bestowed upon him. Despite gaining eternal youth and life, he finds himself trapped in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction and existential dread. He hates that he has to feed on people, but he's afraid to die. Louis constantly questions his actions and the nature of his existence, portraying a life devoid of the natural end as being fundamentally disconnected from humanity and human morals. But really, what this does is it allows Rice to explore the question of what is morality? From the perspective of a human that Louis is feeding on, Louis might very well be a monster. But from Louis' perspective, is he a monster? Or is he just acting to survive as we all are? Is there a profound difference between what he does and what we do when we eat a cow, or a plant for that matter? Immortals really give you the opportunity to explore morality from a subjective point of view, not only in the way that vampires do with Anne Rice, where you have a vampire engaging in what we would see as a monstrous act, but also from the perspective of purposelessness. But before I dive into that, I just want to say that I did make a video on vampire evolution and how we got from where we started with the original vampires to where we are now with glittering vampires. And if you're interested in my thoughts on that, do check out the information card. Okay. So, about immortal characters and purposelessness. I am a fan of Camus, the philosopher, and the philosophy of absurdism. In his infamous founding book, the protagonist is basically an adherent of the absurd nature of the universe, where we want the universe to have meaning, but it doesn't. So the protagonist has realized that the universe has no purpose. There is no meaning to life beyond what we give it. It is not meaningful in any objective sense. And because of this, he doesn't care what he does. He doesn't care what happens to him. Even when he is ultimately executed for his actions, he still doesn't have any connection to it. It doesn't bother him that this is going to happen to him because there is no meaningfulness to life. Now, I think an immortal would really allow you to explore that kind of concept of life doesn't have inherent meaning, because you have the scope of observing the universe's life and its death and the many sentient species that might be born and die. This allows you to examine whether life has any purpose, whether there is any value beyond what we, the transient species who inhabit this moment in time, give to life. We are the agents of our own lives because we can determine what is important and what is not important. And I think that an immortal character could allow you to explore that in an even deeper sense than Camus did in The Stranger. The universe is just the universe. It doesn't care. It has no purpose. It has no destination. We who inhabit this moment give value to our lives. What do you think? How would you use immortal characters to explore morality? In your world, what would they sacrifice to stay alive? Let me know in the comments below. And sorry about waxing so philosophical, but the topic does lend itself to it. But now, let's move on to an easier topic. That of the Immortal Villain. Sauron from The Lord of the Rings is a great example of an immortal villain. He offers a thematic exploration of the recurring nature of evil. Even if you defeat evil once, that doesn't mean it's permanently defeated. It is an ongoing battle to maintain good and just society. There is always the temptation of evil just outside your borders, looking for a way to corrupt, to find a way in, and to defeat that which is good. Constant vigilance is necessary against the nature of evil. This was the very deep thematic exploration that is so typical of Tolkien's writing in the creation of this immortal villain that can be contained but not permanently defeated. Another example of an immortal villain comes from Harry Potter, where the villain is, well, somewhat simpler. Voldemort represents our fear of death. His quest was to make himself immortal, and Harry had to retrace those steps to make Voldemort mortal once more. Harry had to overcome the fear of death, sacrificing himself and thus making Voldemort mortal. The thematic conclusion there is about accepting mortality, making you strong enough to defeat evil. And that is the core that lies at the heart of that struggle. Immortal villains also offer the opportunity to lay plans that stretch over centuries or millennia, and thus explores themes of slow-moving patience and how that can affect a mortal protagonist attempting to foil the immortal. That could also give you a chance to further delve into the history of your world, highlighting themes from the past of your world and how they affect the present. It also allows you to tie back to that library-type character, but on the villainous side. Immortal villains definitely offer some unique themes for the writer to explore. And of course, they come with a built-in external conflict. How do you beat the immortal? Which always makes for a fun quest for the characters to undertake. So there's lots of great things that come with immortal characters and their introduction. I was going to include a list of things to be cautious of when writing Immortals, but then the script got a little out of hand, so instead I'll make a follow-up video where I'll explore the pitfalls of immortal characters and how to fix them. So make sure you're subscribed for that. This video was brought to you by my epic fantasy series, Sangwheel Chronicles, where I do in fact have some rather complicated immortal characters of sorts. Those books are on sale at Amazon and most other ebook and online bookstores, and all sales contribute to the ongoing feeding of my cats. But please don't feel pressure to support my channel financially. You can also support the channel just by watching another video. And since you enjoyed this video, you might consider watching my video on fantasy physiology and its effect on non-human cultures. Or you can trust the algorithm's recommendation right over there. And I will see you soon for another video from Just in Time Worlds, where we build what we need when we need it.